Hey, I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, in celebration of International Guitar Month, Pete Townsend of The Who will join us.
Pete went deep with us into his relationship with the guitar and with music in general, the new Broadway version of Tommy. He clarified the status and the future of The Who, and much, much more.
Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, yo, what's good? Check it out. This your boy, Elder Sensei, one half of the legendary Artifacts. You are right now in tune to my man, Tim Einenkel, at the library on rapstation.com. Let's get it popping, y'all. Artifacts. Peace, Elder Sensei. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my man, Duplicate. Sensei.
The Immortals Project, featuring Elder Sensei's latest album, was and is called Rogue Agents. It dropped late last year, but is an album that should be talked about and blasted from your speakers for a long time. I had a great honor to talk to Elder Sensei, the lyrics behind the album, and I have a great honor to speak to the man behind the beats, El Spitover, producer Louis Duplicuts Reyes. Duplicuts, thanks for joining me on the library with Tim Einenkel.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tim. I've been a fan now for quite a bit, especially since you guys started rocking the album and playing cuts off of it. I've been listening to, a lot of your interviews, and in particular, I really dug the one with Crooked Eye. I'm a huge Crooked Eye fan, and it's cool because a lot of your interviews, I've mentioned this before, it's like you should do like a inside the rapper studio, because it feels like a genuine conversation. It feels like someone, you, the person who's interviewing the artist, it feels like you've done your research, like you actually know about the people that you're interviewing. So, I'm definitely honored to be with yourself being interviewed. It's awesome.
So, the Immortals Project featuring Elder Sensei, I think a lot of us want to know, how did you and the Sensei link up?
Well, a mutual friend of ours, Soul Wallace, she introduced us, and she was like, hey, if you have some beats laying around, she knew I made beats, and her and Elle go way back, so she was like, hey, if you have some beats, send them over to Elle, have them check them out, and so on and so forth. So I put together a batch of beats and sent them on over, and he liked a bunch of them, and one thing led to another actually pretty quickly. He ended up rapping on about 4 of the beats and was actually kind enough to pull in Craig G to rap on one of the beats.
Craig G, Elder Sensei, Duplicuts, listen. Hey yo, it's Craig G, Duplicuts, Elder Sensei, we smack, it's classic. Hip-hop, yeah, we get it drastic. Get your ass kicked if you ever think you're testing us. I got my mic, right now, get your weapons up. Lyrics, skills, the way they come is effortless. Verbally, I smash an MC, just leave it left to us. Look a little closer, you'll never ever get the touch. Switch gears on an MC, now watch me hit the clutch. Rip them up, send for sanitation to come pick them up. Power from my verses have enough strength to lift a truck. Duplicate, duplicuts, break boys. Who or what? Treat them like Cypress Hill. Shoot them up, cause we always represent hip-hop to the fullest with skills. We don't need the guns and bullets, so everybody put your hands up and make noise. Craig G, Elder Sensei, and the break boys. Let's go.
So he sent me back the vocals, and I kind of tinkered away on my own in my own lab. I was living in Vermont at the time, actually. And the EP, which was mixed, recorded, and mastered in 2008, didn't come out till 2009. And we didn't actually meet until after the EP was released. It was on iTunes and the whole deal.
Oh, wow.
By the time he and I met. Yeah. So when he and I met was when I moved down to Jersey in 2009. We hit it off immediately, and we started hanging out, and just outside of music, not even just hanging out in the studio, but going to shows together. And I'd give him a ride to the airport, he'd come over to my house, and we'd have dinner and the whole deal. So we actually started bonding, and I think that's why, if you listen to the EP and then go and listen to the album Rogue Agents, that's one of the reasons why it sounds different, is because the dynamic between MC and producer became a lot more intricate. Like, we really got to know each other. I really got to know what made him tick, and he got to know what made me tick, and we kind of developed our own little shorthand in the studio, and when we talk about beats and rhymes and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons I think, you know, if you listen to those two back to back, they sound different. And that's not to say that, you know, the EP is whack in any way. It's definitely different. There was a mix between hip hop and drum and bass, but then by the time we got around to Rogue Agents, you know, we had ideas, we had a theme going, we had certain threads we wanted to follow and certain points we wanted to hit on. So yeah, that's, you know, the story of how Elle and I met originally.
Cool. And I was actually going to ask this a little later in the interview, but you kind of touched on it a little bit. When producing, as a producer, I guess when producing a beat, how important is it to, like, I mean, for Elle, the Sensei, for example, how important is it to you to actually, I guess, know who's going to spit on the beat? Just because, like, I'm wondering, like, if there's a guy who has let's say, for example, an MC with a bassy voice, I imagine as someone who creates music, you probably then would have less bass in the music, right?
Right. Wow, you listen to music, don't you, Tim?
I do.
But no, you do have a point. Keeping it, you know, relative to Elle and Rogue Agents, if you notice, with Rogue Agents, there's a lot of horns in it, right? There's, like, if you listen to I don't know, On the Rise, and if you listen to Pass It Off, and there's a lot of brass and major play. There's a lot of brass in the album in its entirety, and one of the reasons is because, aside from the fact that we wanted to make, like, a statement, right, and brass, horns, you know, trumpets and trombones and saxes, they kind of had this I'm going to make a statement sort of a sound, very celebratory type of a thing. But aside from that, Elle's voice tends to sound very big, very in your face. I recently read on a blog, like, Elle the Sensei does bully rap, so to speak. I didn't realize, you know, there was such a thing as bully rap. I'm like, Elle's cool, he's not a bully or anything. But I think what the point they're trying to get across is that his voice has a lot of presence, right? So I think the brass is something that also has a lot of presence and complements well. It goes well together, right? And then at the same time, I also use a lot of keys. For some reason, I think the texture of his voice sounds really good, whether it's with a Rhodes or a Hammond or even just a grand piano. It just, depending on how it's played, obviously, it sounds really, really good. There's a certain, when I'm mixing his vocals, there's a certain compressor settings that I use because I know that when I bring in the bass, his voice is going to be so big that the bass will get, you know, drowned out if I don't mix it right. So actually, there's times when I'm mixing his vocals where I take away a little bit of the bass on his vocals and mix it just right. Sometimes it's hard to tell if you listen. If I do it the rightest way that I can, it's hard to tell that I've taken bass away from his voice. But I do, to make room for the bass line in the songs and room for the bass and the kicks and all that kind of stuff. So you're right. Just to answer your question, there are certain ways I need to approach the beats I'm going to present to him because I know the texture of his voice, and that goes back to the relationship he and I developed where we got to know each other, not just as artist and producer, but as people. You know, I kind of got into his head, figure out what he likes, and, you know, things of that nature.
Oh, cool. And going back to the EP, I mean, do you feel that? Do you ever feel that you would have loved to redo the EP again? You know, again, post meeting him, I guess. I mean, do you ever look at it and be like, oh, it would be so much different, and I would have done this, this, and this, or you just like let it, you know, it happened, it happened.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking of that recently. Only because we plan to do a remix EP to Rogue Agents, and I was thinking, man, what if, you know, I go back and take the original EP and remix the entire thing or redo it, so to speak. I mean, it is what it is, and I'm happy with the way it is. I did a little bit of that with Rogue Agents the last two songs, if I remember correctly, are actually remixes of the first EP, two songs from the first EP.
Right, yeah.
But I think it would be cool to go back to the EP, knowing what I know now and us knowing what we know of each other, and reinterpret it, so to speak, even if it is the same music, but just do a remix down of the music and maybe add a couple of elements and switch some things around. I think it would be interesting, especially in this day and era where you have all these different reinterpretations of original things, you know, like with movies, they keep doing the same Batman over and over, they keep doing the same Spider-Man over and over. Well, why couldn't you do that with, you know, with music, a reinterpretation or a reimagining of a piece of work, you know? So I think it would be cool to do that.
That's dope.
Yeah. We gonna try something. We gonna try this. Stupendous mouth off, right hand and not the southpaw. Able to rock glass jaws, stature lean, 6 foot dream. Stance in the crowds, battle ready for my team. Receive a bill with the hands too nice. 2 flights to Warsaw at night, then land sunlight. Gunfights and drugs litter my blocks. Conversation in the hood, ask if I still rock. Mad proof like detects and scoops. 48 hours to get killing your troops. Still in the loop, filling the gaps and plug holes. Snub nose, rub elbows with stores that'll sell those. CDs and merch shipped and received. Float till I can't breathe, underwater seas. Friends from the women and pounds from my dudes. Real laws food, meaning packing the tool. Schooled in the art of spitting at the start.
Hey, I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, in celebration of International Guitar Month, Pete Townsend of The Who will join us.
Pete went deep with us into his relationship with the guitar and with music in general. The new Broadway version of Tommy. He clarified the status and the future of The Who and much, much more.
Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.